Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, and today we're going to talk about psychology, but from a spiritual point of view. Many people have depressed attitudes and sad attitudes, and not only is it obviously not the right psychological point of view, but it actually affects them in a physical way also. So therefore, keeping a good attitude, a good spiritual attitude, focusing on something higher than we are, will affect us, of course, not only greatly in spiritual levels, but also in our physical planes too. So this is a letter from the Lubavitch Rebbe, passed away in 1994, but it was such a great scholar and helpful, that overcoming despondency and by having emotions act in tandem with belief and intellect. Let's see what he says. The Jewish men and women are generally believers, sons of believers. That is to say, they all believe and also comprehend that God alone conducts the entire world. Jews also believe with perfect faith that God is the essence of goodness. You surely heard as well as the saying of my father-in-law, the Rebbe of blessed memory, who related in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement about 250 years ago, that God loves every Jewish man and woman as a father loves an only child. In fact, he loves them even more than that. This analogy is used because we cannot imagine a greater love than that of a parent to an only child. The upshot of all the above is this, that all that God does is for the good. And since God desires that things be good for Jews not only spiritually, but materially as well, surely his goodness extends not only to the realm of the spiritual, but also the realm of the material. As mentioned before, Jews not only believe the above, but understand this rationally as well. It sometimes happens, however, that while this is believed and understood by the person, unfortunately this belief and understanding does not seep into the person's heart and emotions. The result of this is that certain untoward events cause them to feel heartbroken and despondent, God forbid. When, however, a person works on himself, endeavoring to have his belief and understanding filtered down into his emotions, this results in the realization and feeling that all that God does, he does for the good. Indeed, it cannot possibly not be so. This enables the individual to eventually be able to perceive and feel that matters are overtly and obviously good. For since God rewards the individual in kind, measure for measure, this attitude engenders God's revealing to all, and particularly to that individual himself, the goodness that lies concealed in the seemingly unpleasant event, so that it may be perceived for the good it truly is, even with the naked eye. I extend to you my prayerful wishes that very soon God should demonstrate to you the complete goodness that transpired in the past events in your life, in which you have failed to see until now, and that you will be truly joyful in all aspects, both spiritual and material. Next letter deals with dealing with setbacks and adversity. I surely need not emphasize to you that a true businessman is not one who can manage his affairs when conditions are favorable and matters are running smoothly and successfully, but also and even more so when he demonstrates that he knows how to deal with adversity and the occasional setback. Indeed, facing up to the challenge of adversity makes one a stronger, more effective executive than before, with an added dimension of experience and a keener acumen, which can be put to good use even when things begin to turn upwards. Sometimes a temporary setback is just what is needed for the resumption of the advance with greater vigor, as in the case of an athlete having to negotiate a hurdle where stepping back is necessary in order to facilitate the higher leap. Overcoming feelings of abandonment and having one's life depend entirely upon oneself. Surely you are correct in writing that you have already suffered enough. It is high time for everyone to be helped in all that they require, particularly with regard to good health. And I hope you will be able to convey to me glad tidings regarding your improved health. I wish to note the following, although I am not entirely sure whether this is wholly germane to your situation. Quite often, a person's feelings of self-assurance and security are dependent on something outside of and higher than himself. In simpler terms, they are dependent on his feelings of faith and betachon, trust in the Creator of the world as a whole, and a man's personal world in particular. After the earth-shaking events of our generation, the Rebbe was writing this as a side note right after the Holocaust, which have shaken various spiritual foundations and torn away many individuals from deeply rooted family and national traditions. It affected many people and caused them to think that they were left hanging in the wind without something to which they could anchor their lives. I'm referring here even to those of them who are believers. Their faith became something that was disconnected from their practical everyday life. They would think about their faith, recite Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, or Modani, the first prayer every morning that says, I thank you, God, for being alive. Often thinking about the meanings of the word, and yet they would go around the entire day with the thought that they were entirely alone, each of them drawing conclusions from these thoughts according to their nature and personality. The most realistic manner of helping such individuals regain their equilibrium is by revealing within them their familiar and ancestral traditions that even now remain concealed within their souls. They will then perceive that a man is not alone. Moreover, they will realize that man is the master of his lot only to a certain extent. For the most part, it depends on God. Consequently, the person needs not place all the burdens of his life on his own shoulders, feeling a tremendous weighty responsibility for everything that happens to him. Surely need not be filled with despair regarding specific matters or specific situations. When such individuals are connected with their fount of faith and betachon trust, without the slightest doubt remains deeply rooted in them, this will lead to their peace of mind and will enable them to live their lives in a healthier manner and better be able to fulfill the unique tasks that each and every individual has in life. All right, so we're talking a few beautiful, beautiful letters from the Rebbe, how a person has to, my words, keep rolling. Those are always my words. A person has to keep going and just know that they're doing the right things, and if there's some bumps in the road, then they just have to be above it and just keep on going over all obstacles. And the next letter is dwelling on life's misfortunes. You write about the terrible decree and misfortune that transpired. Understandably, you should uproot such thoughts and those like them, since A, they are without foundation. B, there is the celebrated adage uttered by the Rebbes, the Hasidic Rebbes, that, quote, think positively and you will see positive results. And C, it is known that the crucial determinant of a person's feelings when he is unsure of their validity is to ascertain how these feelings will affect his deeds and actions. We verily observe that the emotions you demonstrate regarding the harshness of the decree leads to a lessening of one's good deeds, as well as to despondency and loss of hope. These negative traits are not only prohibited and to be eliminated by spiritual reasons, for simple common sense reasons as well. In place of the above, it is my opinion that there lies a sacred obligation on all the friends of the family of the deceased to try over and over again to ensure that the children, Allah Shalom, man of the person that passed away, follow the path of Torah mitzvos, commandments in their daily lives. Understandably, it is specifically that this is of the greatest import, of crucial importance not only to the children of the deceased, but to the deceased himself. This is infinitely not more important than eulogies or memorial services. Surely I need not demonstrate to you the truth of such a simple matter, nor need I explain it at further length. And on the reverse of it, recognizing the good in life. From time to time I inquire about your well-being and receive news about your welfare from your children. I am surprised by the fact that on a number of occasions that they have told me that your mood is not as it should be. In general, each and every one of us, when we research and ponder our lives, even during the last few years when matters do not seem to be going so well, will observe God's kindness and goodness up to and including matters that were not at all expected. In fact, the individual sees these things to an even greater extent than does another, as each person knows in his and or her own life. This should lead the person to recognize and acknowledge the blessings and goodness that he has perceived from God. And quite possibly on more than one occasion, the person received these blessings without any effort on his part. This leads to the inevitable conclusion that if there do exist matters that are contrary to a person's desires, then it may very well be one of two things. Firstly, quite often a person does not truly know what is best for him, and if that which he desires will indeed bring him true benefit, or possibly the opposite. Even when the individual concludes that he knows with 100% certainty that the thing is good for him, he still cannot possibly know the reasons why he has not been granted these matters for the time being. This is analogous to the business world. A good and experienced business person will not sell his merchandise in an inopportune time, and this is the case even when he can realize a profit. For that he reckons that by selling his merchandise at a later date, he can realize a far greater profit. The same is so with God's goodness. If it is delayed, it is all probability because at a later time, God's beneficence will be in a much greater manner in both quantity and quality. This is particularly true in your case, where God has blessed you with true nachas, pleasure from your children, something which is not so often found. Since you and your wife can anticipate even more nachas and pleasure from your children, you're going around unhappy, something which cannot be interpreted as dissatisfaction, God forbid, with the manner in which God conducts your affairs, defies understanding. Moreover, to a certain extent, this is an expression of ingratitude to God. It is self-understood that I am not writing to you in order to admonish you, but to convince you that even according to the way you look at your life, the good things in your life are incomparably greater and more significant than those matters than you think are temporarily not as they should be. Bear in mind that when a businessman makes an accounting, he does not consider each item individually, but makes a total accounting of the inventory as a whole. And so too regarding the balance sheet of events in your life. It is my hope that the above few lines will move you to reconsider the calculation that you are making. I'm sure that when you will do so, you will reach a much happier conclusion than you have reached until now. And it's powerful. The Rebbe is always powerful. He always has the right words and the correct words, and he does it in a smooth way, but it gives it between your eyes. He tells it the way it is. No compromising. Experiencing goodness throughout one's life. I was astounded to read in the letter that I received from you that your husband's spirits are very low. How can this possibly be after the two of you have personally witnessed and experienced God's wonders and kindnesses? This experience should rouse you to great joy, for the shining countenance of a king, the King of Kings, blessed God, there is life. And yet, notwithstanding the above, to find oneself in a depressed state, surely there's nothing the machinations of the evil inclination. It is my strong hope that this down mood is but a temporary phenomena, and that it is already past. Moreover, we have been promised and assured by our sacred Torah, the Torah of life, that whenever one has been shown good kindness and goodness from above, it is for many long and good years. Surely this promise will be fulfilled with regard to you and your husband as well. Excuse me. I await very speedily glad tidings with regard to the above. So just keep your mood up, and the Rebbe keeps on quoting good things to people. Do not become crestfallen by life's challenges. Surely I need not explain at length to an individual like yourself that there is no room for feeling downhearted from your encountering some difficulties in the course of fulfilling your true task in life, that of, I was created to serve my Maker. Such feeling are from the machinations of the evil inclination that seeks to bring the person to a crestfallen state. In point of fact, the entire purpose of the evil inclination lies in man's vanquishing him. Indeed, this, that the evil inclination be vanquished, is also the desire of the evil inclination itself. It is to be understood from the Holy Zohar, which is a basic work of the Kabbalah, quoted in Tanya at the conclusion of chapter 29. Ultimately, even those matters that presently conceal and obscure goodness and holiness are themselves transformed into good, and not only in a matter of all that God does, He does for the good, that goodness will eventually result, but in a matter of this too is for the good, that the matter itself becomes good. This difference is to be understood from the story itself of Nachum Ish Gamzu, which his name is Nachum, the man who said, he always said, this is for the good, wherein the transformation of the earth into weapons served as overtly revealed goodness, as opposed to the expression, all that God does, He does for